Hello, my beautiful IU. Mark Mangus, the digital shaman, joining you again with another amazing topic, rituals and habits and how they help you on your journey to total wellness. And I have an amazing co-host today with me, Tracey Jones. Say hello, Tracey.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me, Mark. It's fantastic to
Absolutely.
be here.
So Tracy and I went through training together for the shamanic practitioner training and energy healing work. And we both have backgrounds in corporate and very different backgrounds, but both corporate. And I'm really anxious to dive into this with her. She's got some amazing experience with ritual that she can bring in. And so, anything you want to say to get started, Tracy?
Let's just dive straight in.
All right, I like it. So the premise of today's live stream is to talk about shamanic rituals for wellness and guidance. So anybody watching this is already interested in the practical aspect of how this could help them improve their lives. And so maybe we should start with a little definition. And I like to go to taking a cue from our mentor, Alberto Villoldo. I like to go to brain science first. And if you understand, I've done previous live streams on how the brain works and the four brains that we have in our head, the mammalian brain and the reptile brain are where all the change occurs. Our higher brain doesn't really have the capacity to help us transform or change. It's the lower brain that has to be convinced that there's a new reality. Ironically, the higher brain is the one that can hold that new reality. So we really have to get all the brains working together to actually transform. And habit and ritual are one of the main ways that we can do that. And there's so much evidence out in society, even in completely secular circles, scientific circles around whether it's addiction therapy or, how long do you need to sustain a habit before it becomes a lifestyle, 29 days or whatever it is. There's all this evidence out there. And yet people still struggle when it becomes personal. Like I have something in my life that isn't working for me and I want to change it. How do I do it? It's like it's a new day. They're starting from scratch to try to figure it out. And
Mm.
if we go and look at indigenous cultures and across the world, not just the ones in the Andes that we learned from, but they all have rituals. And whether you are consider yourself or identify as a spiritual person or not, the value of ritual, even on a scientific level, is is very easy. It's very evident. It's very easy to pick out, right? Now, if you're like us and you believe that there's something happening on a spiritual level as well, then it becomes even more poignant, right? That the importance of rituals. So, all that to say, to kind of set the stage for
Mm.
uh, what does it take for us to change, and how do we change, make positive change in our lives?
Thank you. I think that really sets the scene so well, Mark. I think what I fundamentally will focus on today is the change I've that has happened to me. I've certainly seen my clients and the people I work with make significant change, but I think when you really come back to the personal sort of challenges that you've managed to overcome, and how you've brought change into your own life, people get the opportunity to understand that we're all on this journey together, and that sometimes we think that people have all of their shit together, for want of a better word.
Mhm.
Um, but in reality, I think change can be hard for all of us. Um, and I think I want to start there because, I think when it comes to ritual and bringing ritual into our lives, um, or changing something, we often feel that that change is so big, it's so insurmountable. But in reality, I think change can just be done gently, and far smaller actually, then, I have to have to change my hair, and I have to change where I live, and I have to change my job. And all those things are really great goals to have, really. We all want to bring great changes into our lives. But sometimes we think that if it can't be gargantuan, then it can't be at all. Right. When in reality, the best changes are really teeny tiny, habits, little things that we can change every day. And I think if we can just bring them down into the micro, I think it's a little bit like a plane that sort of sets a course, and it auto corrects, it sort of sets off in that direction and auto corrects as it goes. And I kind of do see, some of the ritual and the place of ritual as being able to auto correct every day, just bringing you back into being intentional, having a little bit of mindfulness around what am I feeling, what am I trying to create, and also to not making it bigger than it needs to be. Just try little micro changes on the daily, and that's where ritual really can come in. And Mark, some of the changes that you've brought into your world, if you look back on them, are utterly phenomenal. And I think if you sort of set out right from the get-go to make that big change, it would have just seemed insurmountable.
Oh yeah, overwhelming. I have to bring in something that just popped into my head, that a gentleman that I did some peer counseling with, got to be 10 years ago or more, that was in the special forces in the US Army. And there's two terms that they use that I think are apropos. One is none, meaning if you're trying to do it alone, you might as well just not do it, because you're not going to be successful. So the value of doing this in community, doing the change, doing the ritual, right? Getting help, allowing someone to be of service to you. Then the other thing that they like to say is fast is smooth. And to me, that means small incremental actions, small incremental changes, like you're saying, right? So it's not about taking a big swing. It's about, what can I do every day as a small change that I can sustain? And pretty soon you look back and you're like, wow, not only did I make a lot of changes, but this is how I'm living now. Right? So I just wanted to offer that, but please get back to telling us about your story and your changes. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So you're so right, Mark. And I think, doing changes on the little, finding little gentle ways to bring change into your life on the daily does two things for people. Well, it certainly did two things for me. It made it seem far more achievable. Even if I said I wanted to get fit and I'm going to run for an hour every day, that's such a big change. But if you can come back to, but what can I do that's just a little bit better today that might set me towards the things that I'm intending to change, and building ritual around it. It makes it seem achievable. The second thing, and this really goes back to what you were saying about being alone in some of the change. What I have found is that ritual brings the invisible world and spirit and our guides and all of the accessible support that's available, even if I'm on my own. You're actually being able to connect with the sacred or the divine or spirit, and being able to feel that your changes are not alone, that you are truly being supported through those change. And I think ritual also helps you pause, connect, feeling a little bit of the divine in terms of support of your change, and then also making space and time for that change. And I think whether or not you're spiritual or, whatever your belief may be, I think some of that can get in the way. When I really do talk about spirit, I'm just talking about, it could even be, your family who may have passed over, right? Cheering for you, looking down on you, or being able to connect more with the earth, nature and
Mhm.
feeling the supportive energies just of your environment, and feeling that they equally support whatever change you're trying to bring in. So you can, I think what I like about those two things is they are both accessible and achievable when you can just bring them into a micro. And then you can go, what can I contribute? What can I do here with
Mhm.
intention that will support my goals, that will support the changes I'm trying to make?
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting, when I first joined, when we first started training together, Mark, you sort of tell people.
I think our video froze. I apologize, everybody. Work this out in the edited version. Just going. All right, here we go.
Okay. So when you and I first started training together, lots of people asked me, "Oh, are you going to learn about ayahuasca?" For some reason these days people do put these two things together, and I, in my shamanic practice, was definitely going, no, 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 that's not going to be for me. But what I've constantly found is the things that you straight away put a block up to, or you say you'll never do, honestly, is sometimes the key to the things that you need to go to.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are into Kung Fu Panda, but Kung Fu Panda, one is one of my most favorite movies of all time.
Mhm.
And the turtle Shifu says, often, a man meets his destiny on the path that he takes to avoid it.
Right.
And so that was a bit true for me. I was like, no, no, plant medicine is a no. But what I actually found was some sacred ritual elements through the use of cacao.
Mhm.
And, I don't know if anyone like me has been, hyper targeted by the algorithm, but, I can tell you cacao followed me all over the internet constantly. And I was like, okay, I love hot chocolate. I'm going to give, ceremonial cacao a try. And my husband and I together, actually, what's something I started out with on my own, but I've now, involved my hubby. Our, sort of ritual has become our little love language. We started to do ritual cacao every day. We do it by the beach. We do it intentionally. And I have found that continues to enhance our relationship, but it also helps us be intentional in terms of every day. What are we trying to achieve? What are
Mhm.
the changes we're trying to bring in? But equally too, really about grounding in nature, and
Yeah.
coming back to feeling the sacred. So on the path I took to avoid, plant medicine, brought me into what is now my passion, which is absolutely working with plant medicine.
I love that. And I love that it's so kind of down to earth, not complicated, something that you share with your spouse, and it's a way to that you can kind of stop the world and bond. And I just want to bring that to the people that are watching this. When we say ritual, we're not talking about something that's complicated or something that you have to go to training to learn, right? Ritual is something that you bring into your life that's, to me, a reflection of the sacred. It's a reflection of your connection, your personal connection to something greater than yourself. It doesn't really matter what you call it. We get hung up on names as humans and we try to categorize and analyze everything. And this is the opposite of that. This is connecting to the coolest way I've heard it described recently is connecting to presence, right? So it's your own presence,
Mm.
it's the presence of all that is, and without really going down the rabbit hole of naming it, right? It's just that sacred space that you're claiming, that I believe is the divine right of all humans. You don't have to have any particular training, you just have to be a person and you can
Hmm.
claim it and bring it in. So I love that. And a little piece about plant medicine, I had a similar knee-jerk reaction in the beginning of the training, and everybody that hears the word shaman, especially in this little bohemian town, Ashland, that I live in, they immediately think ayahuasca, right? And what I respond with is evolved over time, but now I'm about plant medicine in the context of food as medicine, because all I eat are plants now. So plant medicine is profoundly powerful, and plant teachers come in many shapes and forms. And I believe that communing with them, communing with Mother Earth, or what we say Pachamama, is a fundamental reconnection way that we can claim that space, that sacred space. And it can be like you're saying, it can be as simple as walking around in nature. Put your, like I tell people all the time, put your bare feet on the earth and your face in the sun and see if you don't feel better. Instead of reaching for a pill or doom scrolling on your device or watching TV or something, that's not going to ground you, right? But being in nature and being with the earth will ground you. So it doesn't have to be complicated.
It doesn't have to be complicated. You're 100% right. In fact, and I think the simplicity that you can bring to these things is just makes it easier, right? And I do think change can be hard. It doesn't have to be. And finding easy ways to think about being intentional every day, creating a ritual around being intentional. It kind of gives you two things. It kind of helps you realize what you're trying to intend for the day. What do I want my day to be? And if you can just stay in the day, like if you can be as present as possible, where am I now? But also too, I think gives you the opportunity to truly reflect. I don't think
Mhm.
we often in our really busy lives have too much time to reflect and to connect with ourselves, how we're feeling, um, what happened, how am I feeling today, and how do I feel about yesterday? How do I feel about today? How do I feel about tomorrow? But observing yourself doing that and taking a moment to pause to bring intentionality into what you're trying to achieve, I just think, well, it gave me space actually. And I
Mhm.
think if other people are like me, it's device, meeting, talk to this person, get that thing done, get kids to school, sort out lunches, we seem to be walking task lists. And
Yeah.
that's fine. We're all, there's nothing that's not wrong. But being able to slow down and using ritual to slow us down, I think gives us an opportunity to reflect and
Yeah.
to connect with ourselves. And as you say, ground. And I think you're so right about what my journey with rituals has given me in terms of plant medicine is starting to see all plants as medicine.
Mhm.
And so even if you said, well, I don't do cacao every day, but you know what I do? I do coffee.
Mhm.
Um, make coffee intentional.
Yeah.
Think about the coffee. Think about the quality of the coffee. Where does your coffee come from? Recognize that it's part of it's a plant. It nurtures you. It nourishes you as you
Yeah.
drink it, as you enjoy it. And it even down to my oats of a morning, if oats is your thing,
Mhm.
or fruit. All those things are potential plant medicine. And you can bring intentionality to commune. And I 100% agree. It's like recognizing that you get an opportunity to be with those plants and to connect with their wisdom about whether or not they're right for you, whether or not something makes you feel good,
Yeah.
whether it doesn't make you feel good. I think you really brought that into your practice, Mark, of
Mhm.
eating and listening to your body. How does my
Yeah.
body respond when I eat this? But that's true for our daily lives. How do I
Mhm.
respond when I'm in this meeting? How do I respond when I'm with this person? Um, how do I respond when I'm on my own? Those things are all really about learning yourself or learning about yourself, connecting with yourself. And I think
Yeah.
when you get that, when you can get a better view of yourself, you can make different choices without judgment.
Yeah, I love Christine said in the chat that she believes that ritual requires us to be intentional and devoted to something to make ourselves better. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. And for me, as you know, because you know my story, the whole thing around intentional eating and what I've taken to start calling the body dialogue method is bringing this intentionality and this mindfulness into sourcing, preparing, and eating your food was what led to me losing 120 pounds and walking away from chronic pain and reversing my pre-diabetic condition and all the other things that I've done over the last 2 years, say. And I love the bit that the Caro people in the Andes, when they sit down in a community to eat food, whereas in the West, we talk about saying a prayer and blessing the food. The Caro talk about the food blessing us. The food doesn't need to be blessed. The food is a blessing.
Mm.
And so that really has shifted, that and many other things has totally shifted my mindset around how we can live with plants. And even thinking along those lines, living with plants. I never thought that way before, right? It's like,
Mm.
yeah, that's there's this pharmacopoeia and this cornucopia of abundance on this planet. And I believe we were given everything we need to be exuberantly healthy. And when we're not experiencing that, it's because of something that we've done to get in the way. So what the big shift for me was realizing, for one, that I didn't have a weight problem. I had a harmony problem, and that I wasn't living harmoniously and I wasn't thinking about my life that way. And so once I started thinking that way and I started letting things go, it wasn't about, like you were saying, we're walking taskless, right? It wasn't about that. It was about letting that go and surrendering to the natural state of abundance that's available to all of us more and more. And I'm not perfect. I have good days and bad days, and I'm still learning and I still get triggered by things. But taking a mindful moment, whether that's a ritual or just kind of the breath between thoughts, and bringing that in and really kind of, instead of reacting, making your next action a choice. What do I choose to do with what just happened to me? Because a lot of times you can't choose what happens to you, but you can almost always choose your next action.
Mm.
And you also can't choose how you feel always, but you can choose what that emotion drives in you, what it makes you do, what it makes you want to do. I should say it that way, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
ritual to me comes down sometimes to just the space between thoughts and stopping and just saying, yeah, I had that happen today. I can't even remember why, but I was triggered by something that someone said and I didn't react. I just let it pass. But after the meeting, I went, yeah, that triggered me. I wonder what I have to learn from that.
Mm.
And if you would have put me in the same situation even a year ago, I would have immediately reacted and said something. I don't know if it would have been bad, but I would have said something. And that, to me, that's a big part of this whole ritual thing, this whole habit thing, is the same energy that we use to tear ourselves down, like with negative self-talk or habits that are not in our highest good, and we all know what those are. Um,
Mm.
that's the same energy we can use to establish these new ways of being, new habits, new rituals.
Mm. Mm.
And that's what we learned from our Andean ancestors as well, is the same power that we use to harm can be used to heal. We just have to decide that's how it's going to be.
Mm. Yeah. And I think, a mantra that I've really taken into my daily knowing, my daily insight, is to believe that there's nothing about me that I can see in my light or my shadow that I cannot love, that I cannot forgive, that I cannot have compassion for and sit with, which gives me permission to be able to look at how I respond, or, you know, what upset me or what gave me joy, you know, what thoughts, you know, did I tell myself at different parts of the day, and not to bring judgment to those thoughts. I think we all want to be, we want to be good people. We all want to believe we're all acting with the highest of intention. And I really believe that that's true for most of us most of the time. If we can therefore sit with ourselves and be genuinely curious about how we're feeling, and have space for that, we have an enormous capacity to make a change the next time we feel that, or even to ask ourselves whether or not, you know, you get to see a belief, is that true?
Yeah.
And being able to have compassion for ourselves. You know, we can all do the things, right? We do the
Mm-hmm.
things to make the change with the stuff. But I fundamentally, for me, it's been that change, that change in myself, of knowing that there's just nothing in me that I can't love. If I look at myself as an adult, and recognize that also too, if there's some things that I'm not, that I might think, you know what, maybe I would like to change, I get to do that too, because I'm a big girl now, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I get to make those changes, and I get to also not judge myself through them, and just to recognize that, you know, we are all beautiful in all of our facets of light and shadow,
Yeah.
and to have compassion for that.
I want
And
to just
therefore
call
you
out
can
what,
bring that to change.
yeah,
So yeah.
I want to call out what you said because I think it's beautiful and foundational to the work that we do for ourselves and with clients. Is there's a shift that happens at some point when you start doing this work and you start having the courage to look at your shadows, meaning looking at the parts of your life that you know are not working for you, right? And we can help guide you in that. But all of the work that we're doing with you is about your self empowerment and getting you to understand that you are your own guru and you are
Yeah.
your own savior. And once you start to take that in, somewhere along the line, you find that you're loving yourself. And to me, that was a huge sea change because I spent most of my life, I'm in my 50s now, and I spent most of my life not loving myself, always judging myself, especially because I was in pain or I was overweight or whatever it was, fill in the blank, right? Doesn't matter. But not loving myself. And now not only do I love myself, but I look at my, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because words are things. I look at things about myself that I still don't prefer with compassion because I see the entire history of my life and how I got that way. And so it's like
Yeah.
what I'm seeing in the mirror is that roadmap. And that immediately brings in the thinking about, well, just look how far you've come since you allowed that thing that you don't like to define your identity. That's not true anymore. You still see it, you're human, but that you know that that's not who you are. That's not your story anymore.
Yeah. So I think when I come back to, so what, right? So we know the why, but what is the what? You know, so how can I bring this into my daily life? Um, how I brought this into my daily life was, um, I chose a focus point. My focus point was ceremonial cacao. It was working with plant medicine to assist me. I and there's a whole raft of I think plant medicine um, scaffolding, and I've actually got an ebook that I'm really happy to share with anyone who's interested, and I'll give everyone an opportunity to let me know, and I'm happy to sort of share the full instruction. Don't need to take notes now. Really, I can kind of help you with all of that later. But I chose a medium. I said, okay, plant medicine is going to be a way that'll help me be a focus point. And I chose a time period. Now, we know that the reptilian brain, the ritual kind of would benefit you if you sort of stick with that, sort of month-long time period of being intentional about making small change, about bringing ritual into your life. That helps you make that change, do something for 28 days and it becomes a habit, right? That's what you were saying at the start,
Mhm.
Mark. So I chose a lunar month. I chose a place, but I was super flexible about that. So I knew that on days where I could get there, I wanted to do ritual down by the beach. I wanted to connect, wanted to go somewhere in nature, somewhere that was beautiful for me. But there are plenty of days where, even during my ritual, I was traveling. I got flexible. I just made sure that I didn't put so many rules around my ritual that it meant if life got in the way, it couldn't be done. So just meant going to do this every morning. If I end up in my garden, I do. If I end up in my bedroom, I do. If I'm in a hotel room, that's fine. I'll do it there too. And I did all those
Mhm.
things. I was down in Byron Bay in a hotel. Part of my ritual is sharing some of my cacao with the earth before I drink. I walked through the foyer, blessing my cacao. Yes, good morning, people, out to their gardens to be able to, fulfill my ritual. I think you have to be joyful and fun around it. Don't worry about if people see you. Don't worry about what people think. Have fun and enjoy it. See it as a bravery challenge, if you like. If you have to do it somewhere where maybe people might be curious about what you're doing.
Yeah,
And I made it so that I could do it anywhere, and it was no more than sort of 15 minutes.
sure.
um, I set one intention for that whole period, which was just simply to open my heart more, just to
Mhm.
soften. um, and I can fundamentally tell you that was my experience during that time frame. And it really spurred me on to find more ways to bring ritual into my life. So I still do ritual daily with cacao,
Mhm.
but I've moved on to building other plant ally relationships, and being intentional about those in the same way that I do ritual with cacao. And using, plant vibrational medicine to
Mhm.
be able to make shifts, which has fundamentally softened my experience, actually. I wouldn't
Mhm.
say that I mean, we're all different, every day. We are absolutely capable of change. I know people do question, are people able to change? Of course, people are able to change. I think we change every day, actually. I think we change from breakfast to lunchtime sometimes.
Sure.
So having a belief that you can make those changes, I think, is important. But um, having a focus point is important. Having a time frame, I felt, was important for me, and having an intention that was not so big and so out of the realm that it was something that was going to be absolutely unattainable.
Right.
And making space for spirit in that too. I think if
Yeah.
we have an idea that that's the mountain we want to climb,
Mhm.
but let spirit surprise you
Yes.
in the daily, are all really key things to be open to when you're bringing ritual into your life, I think.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Couldn't agree more. And I think one of the other important practical learnings that I took away from our training was the fact that the entire body of knowledge that we're initiated in with Andean cosmology is self deconstructing. Meaning, as soon as you are overly identifying with something, realizing that that something is a story and that you're not the story, you're the author. And how that relates to habits is think about every habit that you've tried to ever establish in your life before now where you weren't successful. What's the common element? I would argue that it's a story you told yourself about what you were doing, why you were doing it, and your expectations about the outcome. And where spirit comes into that is when you go into this with an open heart and a beginner's mind, and you say, show me. I know nothing. Show me, right? It's a totally different mindset and a totally different approach, right? And man, is that hard for those of us who, well, I think most people, but especially those of us who, as Alberto said, have spent all our lives in the land of do in the corporate world where you're measured on your productivity and your outcomes and your ability to be effective in this, kind of collaborative environment. And to be successful in changing, transforming yourself starts from the inside and has nothing to do with any of that stuff that you learned, right? To give a label to it, realizing it's only a label, that's kind of the masculine energy world. And this world of ritual and habit and change by embodying and releasing and surrendering and nurturing is totally feminine. It's the divine feminine, right? And many of us, especially men, um, have never had that modeled and just totally do not understand how it works. And I feel like I have a beginner's mind and I'm totally figuring out how it works on a daily basis, right? But what I've seen so far is following that guide, that guidance, that channel of energy has been what has allowed me to make profound transformational changes in my life. Whereas everything before was about suffering, whether it was diet or exercise or changing my diet or figuring out how to deal with my pain from a Western medicine perspective, any of that. It was all suffering. And it was all me. And if I did something wrong, it was I was bad, I was less than. Or I didn't get the result that whatever story I made up in my head about the results that I was expecting, it was me, my fault, right? So this new way, if you will, if you want to even call it that, is so much more about not what you know, but what you're able to release. Because the natural state of the universe is for us to be in joy and to be in exuberant health and to have abundant resources. And it's our culture and our traditions and our way of thinking that get in the way of that. So the more we can kind of bundle that up and throw it behind us, even if it's little by little, that's where we get. And that's where ritual comes in, because that helps us, like you were saying, be intentional, connect to spirit, intentionally release those things. And sure, we'll learn some new things on the way. That's the fun part. But to me, it's not really about the new things you learn. It's about all the things that you unlearn and let go of.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really profound, Mark. Letting go of who you think you're meant to be or who other people think you're meant to be, what you think you're meant to do. We all sort of come to, I guess, thinking about our lives and going, well, so typical, we've got a plan. I get this study and then I get this job and then I get this other job and then I get the car and the house. And I think we all judge ourselves, particularly in the world of social media. It's even more so, where we think maybe we don't have enough. But it really does come back to shifting your lens. What story are you telling yourself? I also think about what really would make you happy. Often so many of us don't even really know what would genuinely make us happy.
Yep.
And in fact, I have to say, I've said to Spirit multiple times, I got no idea. I have no idea what would make me happy. I'm living evidence that I thought I did and I don't. You know, help me out and hand it over.
Yeah,
And you know, walk through, do the work in terms of figuring out what stories you tell yourself and unlearn those things.
absolutely. So
Mm.
one of the things that I want to bring in, because I always like to bring things to a practical level for our viewers. You talked about this beautiful cacao ritual. My ritual, this may sound weird to people who haven't thought about it this way before, but I look at preparing my own food and being mindful about how that food is sourced as my daily ritual. I look at it as a profound act of self care. And it's something that I didn't do on the regular my whole life. I would always, oh, I'm tired. I'm going to buy something, or I would have, shelves stocked with packaged food, even if I was trying to buy healthy packaged food. It's almost an oxymoron, right? Um,
Mm.
and I find now that, like you say, we have busy lives, we have to travel, we do things. Even when I'm not in my home context where I have control over all the food, or mostly, I'm still thinking that way. So when I go out to eat, I was in a business dinner last week, and we took the client to a very expensive restaurant, and everybody was, their eyes got real big about the amazing specials. This was like a Michelin 3-star restaurant. Everybody was getting really excited about all the meat dishes. And my friend who knows me was kind of giving me side eye, like, how's Mark going to be with this? I just sat there smiling, totally interacting with everybody. It's not about me judging anything that's happening around me. It's about me taking care of me and my feelings. Now, if somebody asks me a question, like I had another gentleman with me who was Hindu, and he asked me a question. I said, "What are you ordering?" Because I want to order the same thing. And so I told him, "This is the vegan option, right? This is what I'm going to eat." No conversation around the table about it. I didn't proselytize. I didn't say, my way is better than your way. And I think that gives a centering and a clarity and a balance to this ritual that I have around eating, to not make it about anything that's ego related. It's just, what is the best decision that I can make in this moment, in this environment, given where I am now.
Mm.
And I also give up that I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life. I don't know that.
Mm.
I mean, literally part of my practice of doing the check-in and the body dialogue method and asking my body if I should eat something, I have to be open that if my body tells me today you're going to eat an egg or a piece of fish, then that's what I'm going to do, without judging myself and without feeling like I'm less than because I've given myself a label, right? Vegan. I'm eating that way right now. That's all I'll say, because that's what makes sense to me. So that's another aspect of this, I think, with the ritual is it's about you and your relationship with yourself and your in spirit. It's not about your ego of you showing it off to other people, or maybe having a spiritual ego saying, "Hey, look how evolved I am." It's not about that. That'll actually work against you. All this letting go stuff that we keep talking about, right?
Mm.
Now, if what I found is when you act this way with any ritual, people get curious and they want to know more. And I follow what I call the 10% rule. I give them just a little bit. And then if they ask for more, I give them a little bit more. So it's not overwhelming, because a lot of people they haven't been on your journey. They don't know all the stuff, right? They're just
Mm.
interested because they like you and it looks like what you're doing is effective in some way and attractive to them. So just give them a little bit of knowledge. And that's kind of my coaching style too, is, the coaching program I have is about facilitating change, total change, transformation, mind, body, spirit. and understanding that any change, even if you feel like your change is, let's say, physical, that you want to gain weight or lose weight or deal with a chronic condition or something like that, it's not physical. It's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all the things. And if you're still struggling with it after many years and you haven't overcome it yet, I would offer to you that that's why you haven't overcome it yet, because you're compartmentalizing it and you're telling a story about what it is without really knowing what it is.
And being open to knowing what that is too, Mark.
Yeah.
You know, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. Bringing you back to that thinking of there's nothing about me that I can know that I can't love.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you the opportunity to bring elements that maybe maybe there's pain, maybe there's trauma, maybe there's judgment, maybe there's just straight up expectation of I thought I would be this or that. Being open to sort of hearing what it is you're telling yourself and then being with that, and asking if that's still true for you, So as Alberto has taught us, beliefs are locked in very early in life. Belinda Anderson is a wonderful influencer and wellness coach. Also, she's a person that I have done some retreats with, and she definitely talks about show me the boy at 7 and I'll show you the man. So much about who we are does become quite formative by the time we're very young. But that doesn't mean that we can't see those things and, as you say, unlearn them and learn new ways to be. And I think ritual has a real supportive element to bring to that, so that we're able to, just make a little change on the daily and make it about ourselves, just as you were saying. Model for yourself. And if other people are curious, fantastic. You get to share that.
So everybody wants, I won't say it that way. A lot of people want, a quick fix, a process, a pill, because from the time we can understand words, we're taught that's how you change things. That's how you fix things. That's how you heal, right? So I'm going to give everybody here the secret formula. Change. Not about what you're trying to learn. It's about what you're releasing and making space for. So get this thing out of your head that you've got to go get a PhD in food science or psychology or anything, fill in the blank, right? If you want to do that, great, but it's not going to change your who you are at a foundational level. What's going to change who you are is offloading the stuff that no longer serves you and making space for the stuff that spirit is trying to give you. It's trying to gift you, right? Because everything in the universe is a gift, even if it's the hardest thing that you've ever had to deal with in your entire life. And many of us have gone through extreme trauma, or it's been right next to us in our family. And I believe that now that those things happen for us, not to us. And that's all the trauma that you've internalized and inflicted on yourself as well. So that's the secret. Now, it's easy to say, hard to do. And I believe that this transformation stuff is meant to be done in community. And once again, that's not what we're taught in the West. We're taught that if you can't figure it out and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and become the person that you think you should have been, then you're somehow less than. What I'm telling you is that will get you an ulcer, a divorce, bankruptcy, estranged from your children, fill in the blank, right? What will get you to becoming the person you were always meant to be is by claiming it, getting rid of all the stuff that's in the way of that. And that's what Tracey and I have devoted the rest of our lives to doing, is guiding people on that path, their own path, not our path, and guiding them in the techniques and ways to get rid of all that baggage, let it go, release it. And we have specific ways that we do that, sure, but mostly it's about your way and really unlocking your inner healer. And, we have lots of examples from our own lives and our other clients' lives and things that we can tell you that have worked for people. But at the end of the day, none of that really matters. What matters is the story that you're writing, this new story for your new destiny, and claiming that.
Mm. That's so right, Mark. It is about coming back to realizing our own power. And that my answers are not your answers are not somebody else's answers either. But some of the things that we can share might be helpful. And if those ways don't suit you, then that's okay, because there's other ways to try. And also realizing that that's where the community comes in, being able to get guideposts of what's worked for others, but fundamentally also remembering you are your own guru. And what we're all trying to do really is become empowered within ourselves, and to know within ourselves that the answers, we have them. And our answers are more valid than any answers outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. All we have to learn to do is listen. And that sometimes is very, very hard. I mean, people live their whole lives never learning how to listen. They're just following their path, whatever path they think is laid out for them. And that's the problem. That's why they're sick or unfulfilled or feeling disconnected. And so that's the work of a lifetime. And if you're lucky enough to find somebody like Tracey to help you, that can really help you listen.
And I think if your daily ritual was as simple as there's a tree in my yard or a plant, or there's a plant on my balcony, and I'm going to go sit with that plant just for 10 minutes a day and listen internally, what's happening within me, just listening and being still. If your ritual is as simple as that, fantastic. I think there is absolute purpose, and it will actually make a change. And in fact, I would encourage people, if that's something similar, a bit of quiet. The wonderful Christine Grimm, who's on this call, has silent retreats. But I would encourage even 10 minutes of silence and listening within. Profound opportunity for change.
Absolutely. Well, Tracey, we could talk all day.
We could. Thank you, Mark, for having me this morning. Well, this afternoon, Mark.
Yeah, my this afternoon, and my Friday, your Saturday. See, people, we're international here.
Really global family.
Yeah, it really is. I love having you, and every time I get to talk to you, I learn something. So thank you for bringing your wisdom and your power into the circle. And we're going to have the information to contact Tracey if you'd like to work with her. And as always, you can contact me. You can DM me if you're in the circle. And I'll also include my link to do a discovery session with you, which is no obligation, no charge. If you want to figure out if this kind of work is for you, I would love to work with you. I'm sure Tracey would too.
Thank you, Mark. And I do make that offer. If anyone is interested in an ebook on cacao ritual and how to work with cacao specifically, I'll be really happy to share that.
Amazing. So I think we got a couple of takers already. So she'll DM you guys and post that on your Facebook Messenger. And with that, my beautiful Ayu, I leave you. Thank you again, Tracey. Love and light.
Thank you, Mark.
And we'll see you next time.